Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Leadership Breakdown Podcast. I'm your host, Kylie Ota, and today we are talking about something that needs to be said because a lot of people out here are working hard, producing a lot, and still on the inside feeling empty. And what I've learned is, through all the years of working in oil and gas and just working alongside a lot of hardworking, business minded entrepreneurs, here's what I've learned. When we're building something that doesn't last, it's like the Bible says, right? When we build on sand, it doesn't last. But when we build on a foundation like a rock, right? We have to think we're building that way, right? This is building on something that feels true. Because if we're not, that's not real leadership, right? Because you can have all the funnels, you can have all the team members, you can have all the numbers. But if what you're building doesn't reflect who you are, right? If it's not reflecting your CEO code, your leadership identity, it's going to drain you instead of hold you like that foundation. And then, right, it's just another business model, another strategy, another way of doing what the guru says you're supposed to do. That's not building legacy. And for me, legacy is leadership. And I'll tell you why I'm on this legacy kick this week. It's because my grandkids were here visiting and I spent time with them and I have a client who's going through a launch and this is one of my, close proximity clients where I am essentially leading the team, doing all the strategy, doing all of that. And I took a break mid launch. It was the weekend, but you know what I'm saying? Like, we're still in the middle of the launch this week. But I knew that spending time with my grandkids were important because they came in from out of state. And it got me to thinking, with everything that was going on with the launch and like balancing this workload, it got me thinking about where I used to be when it came to launching. Now, in the corporate world, we don't call it launching, but it's like big giant projects. And I used to lead multi-million-dollar projects. And I mean, in oil and gas, everything is just exponential, right? We could lose millions of dollars a day if one piece of equipment was shut down. So there's like this whole ripple effect that does it. So the numbers are very compounded in oil and gas. So I want to make sure that you understand that those numbers are inflated, but the numbers, right? The weight of millions of dollars a day, that's also something that we should look at. So, as I'm sitting here in this duality of here are my grandkids, I'm sitting here enjoying them. And then like I'm managing pings on my phone and just looking at it in that context, like, man, I used to be such a different woman, back when I was in corporate and doing these launches. And then one, I didn't have the, luxury of working from home. I had to work in-house, in office. So that was one thing, but even just carrying the weight of these launches, these projects, like I would carry them home and like it would affect the way that I showed up with my family because, right, my CEO code is the driver. So success, all of that, like the success of the project was part of my identity. And I wasn't able to really balance all of that. And I was very compartmentalized. And so, what I build for my clients now is making sure that they have balance, that they are able to live free. Because a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we build these businesses and it becomes, like a steel trap. It's like you, the irony is you build a business and like thinking you're like, I'm going to get out of the corporate rat race and I'm going to start my own business, become my own person. And then what happens? So client in question, right? We're looking at all of her profitability aspects and breaking down different things. And so what we came to notice is she's like, look, I did one launch a couple of years ago and I had more profitability than these bigger launches with a bigger team. And because profit is revenue minus expenses, right? So she's like, now I have more team, but that also means more cost, right? More expense. So she's like, my profitability went down. I don't feel like I'm working less. And so we're really, trying to shore that up. And all of that to say, intuitively, what hit me was energetically, there was something different at the beginning of her business because I wasn't there, but energetically, there was something different at the beginning of her business. And now it's all about numbers, it's all about performance. And you can see like the apples to apples numbers sometimes always don't tell the whole story because if we're not looking at energetics and frequency and what's happening behind the scenes, what's happening in our mindset, what's happening in our stress levels in our bodies, like that is actually the whole story. And I think you've heard of the cost calculator. I've talked about it on here before when we look at time, ideas, money, and energy, right? That's also layered on top of your offers because when you like offers are like the icing on the cake where you have an offer is basically you have something that you want to sell and you offer it, right? And everything else underneath, productivity, profitability, all of that underneath is where the time wheel aspects come in. So, as we're looking all of these looking energetically, we have to go back to the drawing board about the offer itself. Because right, if your offer is draining you, if your offer is something that isn't performing like it used to, we have to learn how to restructure it so that it fits and it aligns. And another thing my client is experiencing is the guru overload, where there's a lot of different persons that she's has invested in. And over time, like, okay, this person said that, right? And you absorb that. And then this person says this and you absorb that. And all of these strategies are, compounded and absorbed and we feel them. And then it becomes a lot of these unwritten rules that we have to live by. Thou shalt have a funnel that has these things on the sales page, and thou shalt have these things in the checkout page. When we have too many rules and things that we're trying to live and be and do, and like it becomes a straitjacket. And the freedom that you had when you first built your business is non-existent. And so today what I want to break down is how can we, get out of that mindset and really look at each personality type or each leadership style and break it down in such a way that it fits, right? The lifestyle that you want according to your CEO codes. So, right? Because over the grand scheme, like over the course of your lifetime, if this is something, if the offers that you have now are going to stand the test of time, if they are going to be a legacy, right? Again, looking at my grandkids and watching them play and knowing that even for me in my business, right? I have the potential for so much more. I have so much capacity to produce like greater offers that will really serve the world. And, you know, when I'm serving the world, then that's when the income comes in. Right? When we're serving the world, we are rewarded with revenue and returns. So it's not a give to get scenario, but when we are living in our purpose, that's when the flow starts to happen. And like there's all of this talk about flow and it all lines up. We are in a flow state. When we are producing from a flow state, that means everything's in flow, right? If you're not getting the downloads, if you're like, oh, like if sales aren't happening, just from that aspect, sales are not happening. Oh, and you're analyzing and you're looking at data, like, is that really a flow state? No. I mean, yes, we do have to look at data. I mean, I have a whole time wheel, a cost calculator for crying out loud. Data is good. But again, like the cost calculator is where we take all of that data and we measure it for cost. So, right, one of the breakdowns is how many meetings could be turned into emails. That's one of the questions on the intake form. And when we quantify that, like if we can eliminate some of those meetings, right? That's expense not spent. So therefore, profitability goes up because it's less revenue going towards expenses. And when we're looking at expenses, each leadership style is willing to pay for different expenses. So we'll just take the driver versus the critic, for example. The driver is like results, results, results. They will pay top dollar for top experts to come in and give them everything that they need. Whereas, the critic is less likely to outsource because, right, a lot of what happens is the desire for control is very strong. And so, therefore, they hold on to more things because they want to make sure, one, trust is a factor for the critic as well. Like, I'm not going to let you because are you up to the caliber of what I want to put out? If you're not up to that caliber, then not going to trust you with it because this is my baby, right? All of our businesses, right? If we have heart led businesses, our businesses are our baby, right? And I'm not talking, like, again, I'm talking to a specific woman here who is attracted, who wants to create an offer vortex for herself, who wants to create a space where her offers are part of her identity and her ingenuity. And she's literally birthing these things into the world. And so why, the personality types matter is because how we make decisions, I'll just say for the birthing process. And again, back to the drivers, right? The drivers, we tend to overwork and we skip the rest cycle. We're like, okay, until I get across the finish line of success, I will not rest. But also detrimentally, it's that carrot, like the dangling carrot, and the carrot keeps moving forward and forward because, right, success never ends for the driver. It's like, oh, I've achieved this. Let me achieve that next time. Oh, the bar keeps raising higher and higher and higher. And this is what leads to burnout in the driver personality. Now, for the influencer, right? A lot of times there's so many ideas, especially for the influencers that come into the offer vortex container. They're like, oh, I have this, I have this, and I have this. And that's not a bad thing. In fact, like I am a driver influencer combo. So I can relate to the influencer because I get all of these ideas. I get all of these downloads. Case in point, like I'll make myself a case study. When I first started my business, I started off as a travel concierge service. Go figure. Because the mentor that I had at the time said I should monetize what, people were already asking of me. Like, for instance, if I were a party planner or if I was good at party planning or event planning, I could be charging for those events. Not like, oh, hey, you're my BFF. Can you like plan my nephew's birthday party? Sure. And right. And so I'm so thankful for that mentor because she looked at what our geniuses were and she taught us that our geniuses were worth monetizing. So, travel concierge, why? Why? Like, how did that even get in the mix? So, basically, we had engineers that would fly to our refinery back in Hawaii and they're always asking, hey, where do all the locals go? Blah, 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 blah. And then I would be like, oh, here and there and there. And I was also studying to become a health coach at the time. So there were people with dietary restrictions. I'm like, if you want really good food, local, authentic, but you have these dietary restrictions, you should definitely go here. And so when I was in that program, that's what was happening at the time. So then I monetized that. And then I was like, I knew I had a calling on my life to do something in the counseling coaching space, right? I joined the Army as a behavioral science specialist because I knew I had a gift. When I joined the Army, it was right out of high school. And in high school, I was that friend that, like, "Oh, Kylie, I need to talk to you. Like, oh, my boyfriend dumped me." And like a lot of the emotional weight. And I didn't even know what an empath was at the time. But, I was attracting a lot of these people who needed counseling and, just needed a shoulder to cry on. And then when I took a psychology course, I was like, in high school, I took a psychology course and I said, what? These people get paid like $200 an hour just to talk to people? Like this is my jam. And so, right, I've I think I've been like a serial entrepreneur all of my life. When I was in elementary school, I used to sell stuff just to make money because I didn't grow up with a lot. Any cash that I had in my pocket allowed me the freedom to spend on things. Like I didn't have to ask for money. And one, I didn't want to ask for money that my parents didn't have. It was like, wow, I get to choose where this money goes. And like for me, making money was ultimate freedom. And so, all that to say, right, as I progressed in my coaching journey, I went from travel concierge to health coach to another life coaching certification. All of this was on the path of me becoming who I am today. And even the breakdowns, I'll just call them breakdowns, right? I've been married 3 times, currently married 12 years, but the other ones, not so long, not so good. That's the short version. I did write a book about it. If you go to kylieota.com/author, you can read my fictional autobiography. And there was just a lot that was happening in my life at the time. And yeah, so anyway, all of the decisions that you've ever made, that I've ever made, have led you to this place today, right here, to be listening to this episode. And if you take into account everything that you've ever done, right? You could monetize a whole lot of things, right? That's what an offer is. You monetize something, you sell something of value. We determine what that value is. We determine what success means for that offer. And again, each personality type has a different way of looking at what success actually means. And so, right, the driver success is usually money. For the influencer, success is, I would just say, popularity, right? The influencer like wants to have influence. They want to make a mark on the world. And the driver wants to make a mark as well, but it's usually around money influence versus just like personal influence. And with the shepherd, theirs is more philanthropic. I had another version of this quiz where the shepherd was actually called the philanthropist. I switched things around because not everybody understood what the philanthropist was supposed to be. But basically, it's because the philanthropist is more interested in people than money because they are like the shepherd and the driver on opposite sides of the time wheel. And so when you're looking at it, it's time versus money. So that's why I chose philanthropist for that. But, the shepherd really puts others first. And when we're looking at the way that they build offers, a lot of it should be community based. And there's so many factors when we're looking at how to build offers, how to, position them, how to sell them, even the marketing aspect of it. But for the driver, a lot of it is KPIs, ROI, like, am I getting that return on my investment? And for the influencer, am I making my mark on the world? That's usually their mark of a good offer. And for the shepherd, it's how many people am I helping? You know, am I doing a good deed? Am I fulfilling my purpose? And are the people being helped? And so when you're looking at building an offer that way, a lot of it is community based. So we have to make sure that factor in the need for community in those offers. You see what I'm saying? Like the driver, they're not cruel, they're not heartless, but it's less about the people. Like they want to build a good and solid product because a good and solid offer product means profitability over time, right? With less output, profitability increases. So of course, right? There's that. And so on the opposite side, the shepherd, we talked about it last week, their fault is they're more about the people than the money. So they kind of lowball and do all of that. But when we're looking at terms of legacy, they want to know that they've impacted their community and that the people on purpose are, you know, are paramount. And so, again, last but not least are my critics. And, a lot of times the critics will wait until it's perfect before they launch. But when we're talking about in terms of legacy, there's so much left on the table when it comes to critics because the legacy that they want to leave behind actually gets left behind because there's so many good ideas that never get put out into the world. Out of all of the types, I think this is the one that has the most regret when it comes to legacy. And this is how I look at legacy. At the end of your life, what kind of impact have you made? And is it the impact that you wanted to make? Right? For the driver, money, success, tangible ROI, influencer, social currency, that kind of impact. And so, like for the critic, what they want to be known for is quality, right? They want to be known for quality offers. And so, until you know how you lead, you keep building things that will drain you, right? If you're not building with your leadership style in mind, you will build the wrong thing. If you follow the wrong strategy, the wrong guru, you will build, quote, the wrong way, right? So for someone who wants to build community and is more about the people. But if you have someone that a leader or strategy that you're following that's all about ROI and retargeting and like there's no heart in that strategy, it will feel off. And that's why your offers flop, is because you're following something that doesn't match. And then also if you know, you're not super woo and you want the strategy, you want a step by step checklist, but you're following someone who is all into energetics and no strategy, not no strategy, but strategy is, the lesser of the two, where it's more about, frequency, energetics, and how you show up in the world. And then this, there's so many different ways to do things. And at the end of the day, when you're building something, you have to make sure it aligns with you. You have to make sure that it aligns with the legacy that you want to leave behind, right? And again, when you step into the offer vortex with me, this is what we look at. We look at, of course, take the CEO code quiz. We get that, we extract that. And then based on that, coupled with the offers that you have, and like we also take into account all the hats that you've worn over these years. Like for me, it was very hard for a lot of just like strategy based business coaches to feel the impact. And I was even criticized once by a business coach. And here's how it went down. So I was trying to work out my offers and I was in a hot seat. So it was a group coaching call. And she said, I feel like would want this. I feel like she would want this. I feel like she would want this. And she's like, mm-mm. Like she stopped me cold turkey. She said, no, for the rest of this call, you will not use the word feel. I was like, right. We're not coaching together. Obviously she wasn't my vibe, but you know, that's what I'm saying. When you're following the wrong strategy, it will feel off. And you have to know what that is. And you can do whatever you want, right? You can keep doing what you're doing. But how I like to do it is take the quiz, get the assessment done, get your CEO code. Because when you take the quiz, you'll get a whole series of emails that will tell you a lot of the different pieces about yourself, kind of break them down one by one. And then in each email, you'll be able to see yourself more clearly and understand, like, oh my gosh, so many light bulb moments, like, this is me, and once you understand yourself, how you lead, how you show up in the world, then you take that information, then you start building your offers and take some of the stuff that we talked about here and on the last couple of episodes where understanding yourself, then building the offers and understanding your strengths and your shadows, and then building from there. Because when you're building an offer, right, you have to show up your shadows, hands down. You have to make sure, like, shadows, weaknesses, right? Can do like a full SWOT analysis, right? SWOT, right? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You have to look at all of that when you're building your offers, because if something is a threat, meaning, like, if something's going to threaten your vibe when you're launching these offers, you need to just mitigate for it. It's you can hire someone that, like, if it's not your strong suit, hire it out, right? I have an acronym called the AED. So I also have a medical background from the Army. The AED is that defibrillator, like that's the acronym. Like, so if you go to like a medical establishment or you go somewhere and if they have one of these devices on the wall, it will say AED. And it's a defibrillator. And the A stands for automate, E, eliminate, D, delegate. So when we are working on the offers, I bring that framework in as well. So, okay, looking at your current offer suite, looking at, how you're feeling, like, where are you overwhelmed? Where do we need to, like, automate, eliminate, delegate? And when we're doing all of that, it's going to make you feel so much more free. It's going to make you feel so much better about the offers that you're putting out in the world, because you're taking into account your personality type. You're taking into account the time wheel. You're taking into account the AED, where you need to, just get rid of some stuff. And then once we pare that all down, you'll have the offers that you should be putting out there in the world. And I use should mildly because I'm not here to put anybody in a box, but I want you to feel, like, when you're building something, right? You're putting a lot of time, money, and energy into what you're building. I want it to feel good. And in terms of legacy, I want it to have a longevity. Don't you want, I mean, right? Or are you building it just for today? Or are you building it for something that's going to be long term? Something that was brought to my attention when my grandkids were here. Like, is all of this work that I'm doing right now worth being away from them? I mean, yes, it's bringing in money. Yes, but is it fulfilling? And is this a story that I want my grandkids to know about who grandma was and what did grandma do with her life? Like, is this a story that I want them to read in my obituary? I mean, it's kind of morbid, but I I do have this other thing that I worked on. It's another one of my offers. It's called the Legacy Playbook, where where we look at we reverse engineer your offers from the lens of your obituary. Right? At the end of your life, is this a legacy that you want to have? And so we build your life and your offers and your business around the legacy that you want to leave. And so I felt like this was a more philosophical episode than an instructional one. But at the end of the day, the offer vortex is open. And I would be honored to walk you through it. So thanks for being here, and I will see you on the next episode. And if you're interested in joining the Offer Vortex, there is a link in the comments and the show notes. And yeah, if you're feeling the pull, well, one, if you're feeling the pull from like everything that you're putting out there, all of your offers, and you're like, hey, this doesn't really feel like me anymore. I feel like I've built it out of pressure. I felt like I've built it. Things that I'm selling right now are based off of an old persona, an old person who I used to be. Is not in alignment with who I really want to be at this stage of my life. Just come in. It's like it's more of a recalibration, a restructuring of what's existing, right? Because it's 90 minutes. You and I get together. There's a intake form. You fill it out. We look at everything that you currently have. We look at how you feel about all of them, like where can we AED the heck out of it. We look at some time will concepts, like time, ideas, money, and energy. Where are you leaking? Where are you bleeding? Like, where is it like, ugh, there? That's where we really look at restructuring the whole thing. Again, 90 minutes, just you and I. We look at everything and yeah. So there's that. Offer Vortex is here for you. If you want to step in, let me know. And again, thank you for listening to the Leadership Breakdown podcast. It's me, Kylie Ota, and I'm just here to say cheers to your legacy. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to the Leadership Breakdown podcast. If you're ready to break free from the overwhelm and finally create the impact you've been working so hard for, I want you to grab the Leadership Legacy Playbook. This guide gives you the exact strategies to lead with purpose and leave your mark on the world. Don't keep putting off the legacy that you want to build. Grab the link in the show notes and start building your legacy today.